Welcome to another installment of the Sharp Focus presented by Sharp. I'm team reporter Ethan Greenberg, joined by two Jets legends, Greg Buttle and Bart Scott, as we break down and preview this Jets-Bills matchup in Week 7. Greg, nice to see you again, and let's welcome in Bart Scott. Bart, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for finally giving me my invite to the party. Thank you. It must got lost in the mail the previous weeks.
I don't know. You got to talk to Greg about that.
Nice to have you join, Bart.
We got two former linebackers here. Bart, because you're new to the show, we're going to start with you on this question. The Bills 4-2, they have a quarterback that has had a scorching hot start to 2020 in Josh Allen, but he's not the same kind of mobile quarterback that we saw earlier in the year, just a couple weeks ago, in Kyler Murray. Of course, the Jets are familiar with Josh Allen, but what are the differences in trying to contain somebody like Josh Allen, who's 6'5", he's a big-bodied guy, and from your playing days, how do you go about stopping a guy that big?
Well, they both are equally as dangerous, on the ground. But what makes him different and unique is when you go your approach to tackling them and bringing them down. A big guy like Allen, if you just get a glancing blow on him, he's still big enough and strong enough to still deliver the football. So when you go in and you have a free shot at him, what you want to do is make sure, one, that you always attack his upfield shoulder so that he can't get outside of you and make you miss. You also want to tackle the football. Because if you tackle the loose arm of the ball, that doesn't have, not his non-throwing arm, then he still has the ability to throw the ball on his way down. For everybody that knows, a quarterback like Ben Roethlisberger has, thrived on that type of action, delivery, falling down, still being able to get the ball off and give up big explosive plays. Kyler Murray is a guy that can't see over the defense. So what you want to do is you want to distort his picture by trying to have a lot of line action, a lot of things crossing his face, because the same lanes that he runs through, he throws through. With Allen, it's different because he's an over-top deliverer, so he can see over the defense because of his height. So even if you distort his view by trying to plug up the holes, he still can throw over top the defense. So what you want to do for him is you want to get him off his spot. You would never want to do that and present open edges to a guy like Kyler Murray, but you do that to Josh Allen, and you want to try, if you're going to flush him and give up an edge, you want to try and make it his left, his non-throwing side, so that in return, what he does is he runs and takes off. Opposed if you flush him and you try and get somebody in his face and flush him with a exposed edge to his right, he can still run and throw. When he scrambles to his left, he will have to square his shoulders to back up and get him parallel to the line of scrimmage so that he can throw and deliver the ball. It's a lot easier to do when you're right-handed running right opposed to when you're right-handed running left.
Bart Scott just mentioned Ben Roethlisberger, Greg. And, of course, Bart Scott, as a former Raven, saw Ben Roethlisberger twice a year. Greg, the question to you is, does Josh Allen remind you of anybody, whether that's somebody from your playing days or even just Ben Roethlisberger?
Well, he reminded me of a bunch of quarterbacks that would get killed when I played. The rules were different, and the quarterback had a bullseye on him. So it's a little different today than it was then. The guys that playing today, I'm telling you, they wouldn't last 5 years back in the old days, and that is pre-85, when the rules about hitting quarterbacks were a lot different. And all you have to do is go to NFL films to look at the greatest hits of all time on sitting duck quarterbacks, and you can tell what that was. But getting back to the quarterbacks of today, you've got quarterbacks that can do a lot of things and a lot of things with their feet. And so when you look at a Josh Allen, he's not only a very, very good athlete. I loved him in the draft. I thought he should have been number one choice in the draft, but that's me. And you look at what he can do. He does a lot of good things, but how do you stop it? That's the question. And when you really get down to it, there's only really one way to stop it, and that's your defensive line. Your defensive line has to have end tackle games going where they're flipping each other, flying inside of one another guy holding guys. So it gets confusing along the offensive line, and the quarterback all of a sudden doesn't see a lane. It's when you just struggle going 4-on-5, where your defensive line is just going man on man. That becomes easy. Then it becomes difficult for linebackers to fill, or safeties, whoever has a key on the quarterback. It becomes difficult for him because now you're really giving the guy just an easy path to get out, and now you're already 10 yards deep in the pattern. Now you have to come up, you have to break down, and you have to what we call grab cloth. You can't go try to tackle the quarterback. You have to grab the quarterback. And Bart was right, especially on the throwing arm with big guys that can stand there while you're all over the guy and he's not going down. The quarterbacks really are in a lot better shape than they were in the old days.
Hey, Bart, in week 1, when these two teams met, the Jets defense did a good job of forcing the ball out of Josh Allen's hands. They created 2 turnovers on forced fumbles, but they got down early and down quickly in a hole, a 21-0 hole to be exact. So how does a defense go about starting faster, and generally speaking, and then specifically against the Bills?
Well, just understanding how he attacked you. He took shots, but early on, it wasn't about taking shots or trying to get Stephon Diggs, the ball. It was about beating you with his legs. And a lot of those were designed runs. I always, really, remember week 1, Marcus May was really lining up and coming off one edge. So what they start doing is just checking the run game and also escaping opposite Marcus May, understanding that you're one short. So really what happened at that point is the Jets were more disciplined and fundamentally sound and setting edges on both sides to make him stay within the pocket. But I think you have to spy him. But, it's always hard when you spy a quarterback, especially one that could be just as fast as your linebacker and still could be able to win a foot race against, one of your safeties. So what I always like to do, and what we always did, is we always had 2 safeties as a spy. And what happens is you're sitting down and you're inverting and playing a form of maybe cover 4, which, you talk about quads, you talk about having, your force players, which are your quarter flat players. That allows you to be able to have him on both sides, if he decides to run out. Because if you get in the middle and you have to run through a lot of trash, it's a lot difficult to be able to get to him and not allow him to hurt you with his feet. So we would definitely spy him on both sides, but you still have to take away Stephon Diggs and double. So that means you have to try and stop the run out of a light box.
Greg, Bart just mentioned Stephon Diggs, who's been a difference maker for that Bills offense. He's 3rd in the NFL in receiving yards. What kind of difference do you think he's made for this Bills team? And then the second part of this question is John Brown, the receiver opposite him, who had 1,000 yards last season, might not play this weekend. He didn't practice early in the week. We'll monitor his game status. But with that speed and John Brown with Stephon Diggs, how different does that unit look?
Well, it's just like anything else. When you game plan, you're going to game plan against the guy you think is going to hurt you the most. And if that's Stephon Diggs, he's getting double. You're playing him in and out, or you're playing him short and deep. You got a linebacker that's going to cover underneath. Depending on where the safeties are going to be, your corners are going to cover him from the out to the in. The problem that always appears to bother the Jets are crossing patterns, because for some reason they always get picked off and no penalties are thrown. So Stephon Diggs, when you get him crossing, shallow crossing, I think that he's more dangerous doing that than anything else. And you add Brown in there, you've got two really good receivers that catch the ball when it's thrown to them, and that's probably the most important.
Bart, on the other side for this Jets offense, they could be getting some guys back like Denzel Mims. His workload is increasing in practice this week. He's still technically in that designated practice window, the 21-day window, and could get activated for Sunday's game against the Bills. But if the Jets, fully healthy, with Brashad Perriman on one side, with Denzel Mims and Jamison Crowder, how different does that receiving unit look just from a speed perspective, and what kind of pressure could that put on the Bills defense that's taken a dip this year compared to last season?
Well, it puts tremendous pressure on the Bills to decide if they can decide that they can match up man to man. You talk about the ability of these two guys and to run deep, but also their catch radius. We talk about Stephon Diggs and we talk about John Brown and how elite their speed are. Well, you talk about adding 2'4'3" receivers, but at 200 plus pounds, past 6 feet, that's a big difference than maybe Diggs, who's like 5'10", 5'11". Because what happens is, even when you're a big receiver like that, your catch radius is so much bigger than the defense radius of the cornerback, because you're taller, but also now you're faster. So now 1 yard feels like 2, because you can high point the ball in an area which the cornerback can't really defend. So that's my belief that, with John Brown, with Mims and Perriman, that's what we've been waiting to see, because that allows all that real estate underneath from 10 to 15 yards and from 53 yards wide to allow Crowder to work. And if Herndon can come to the party, that creates a lot of space, because those two players can take away 4 players. So then that means that linebackers, if they get caught up in play action, it's going to create those windows behind and put a lot of pressure on the safeties to have to communicate. So, I think this is what we've been waiting to see, how this offense look with all its weapons intact. And so we can have a vision of what the future looks like.
And we'll monitor the status of Jamison Crowder, who was limited in Wednesday's practice with a groin injury. But Bart, just coming back to you real quick, following up on this, you had told me earlier in the week that the Bills typically don't blitz, but against the Jets they do. With a healthy receiving core, why could that make a difference if the Bills do end up deciding to blitz?
Because now you have veteran receivers that understand. Well, Mims isn't a veteran, but now you bring Perriman in. You have Crowder. If you don't have Crowder, you have to go with Berrios. But if you have that, now you have dangerous threats that, guys who can catch a slant, that can be the hot route. Because when you blitz, then what happens is it's voided zones behind the blitz from the player. So it's going to be important to recognize where the blitz is coming from, get to the line of scrimmage quickly, smoke them out with dummy cadence. And once you get the answers to the test, make them pay, either with quick screens or with quick slants. Understand that you have one-on-one coverage. You have to find a one-on-one coverage opposite the blitz. Sometimes when you have a blitz to the left, so to speak, the one-on-one coverage is to your right, and you want to have to win some of those 50-50 balls. Last week, you think about Joe Flacco and Perriman not really being on the same page as far as a chemistry standpoint, because they haven't really had a lot of time to practice with each other. But now, you saw the first one he overthrew, the second one he underthrew. Maybe they get the timing down, and they can figure out the timing. But it was plays to be made. And these guys have the speed that once they catch a ball, maybe 20 yards, they have the long speed to run away from the defenders and hit their head on the goalpost.
Denzel Mims, if he's activated, of course, has that 4.38 40-yard dash in the combine in February. Greg, this is the second meeting between the Jets and the Bills, the second matchup of each AFC East team. Simply put, how difficult is it to beat a team twice in the NFL?
Well, the answer is, if you're good, it's hard to beat them twice. If they're good, it's hard to beat them twice. If you're bad, it's hard to beat anybody once. So that when you come down to playing teams in your division, a lot of times the best team is going to win twice, 3 times, and maybe split with another team. Very difficult when you're trying to find out who you are on a football field like the Jets are. So it becomes difficult. But if you're good, it doesn't matter if you're on the road. It doesn't matter if you're playing a team twice again. And it's like I've always said, and it's just an old adage, you do what you do best and make the team beat you. Once they can beat that, well, then you better change. So I don't look at the Bills trying to do anything different than loading up the box, getting in someone's face, and let's see what Mims can do. Let's see if Mims can beat me and get separation at the line of scrimmage. If that happens, or Perriman gets separation at the line of scrimmage, you're going to see him back off. And then all of a sudden, the Jets might be able to run the ball as opposed to getting crushed by 7 men in the box.
Yeah, for me, if Crowder can't go, you may consider putting Mims in the slot. And you say, well, Bart, why would I put my tall vertical receiver in the slot? Well, he's a rookie. So, they have a guy named, Tre'Davious White, who's a tremendous, lockdown corner. Josh Norman is a guy that wants to get his hands on you. Well, what happens when you put a receiver in the slot? Well, he's off the ball. So when he's off the ball, he's going to be able to have free releases, and he's going to be able to use that speed, because we know no matter what, nobody on that field can beat him. You're running down the field in a foot race. You don't want him to get jammed up at the line of scrimmage and them get physical with him, because he does have such a large target. So if Crowder can't go, I consider putting one of those big receivers in the slot, because that can allow you to get vertical, and you can run combination routes with these guys. You can run 7-8 switches. You can run, double slants, double posts, because they can cross as well on the side of the ball. They can run wheel routes for each other, coming off with different timing. So it can be something that you can exploit and be able to help the rookie out in his debut, if it is this Sunday.
I'm curious, both of your answers to this. We're going to start with Bart, then we're going to go to Greg. Right now, as we record this, Sam Darnold's been limited in practice, so it's unsure if he's going to play or if Joe Flacco is going to play. If you're Sean McDermott, if you're Leslie Frazier, the Bills defensive coordinator, Is it difficult at all to try to game plan for the offense because you don't know if it's going to be Flacco or Sam, or you think that more or less it's about the same, Bart?
For me, it's different because you got two different quarterbacks. You got a traditional pocket passer guy who can move in the pocket, but he's moving to throw, not to run. You talk about Sam, some of his biggest plays this year has been off-schedule plays where he improvises, gets outside the pocket, and he's found chemistry with his receivers, uncovering themselves. So you can do a lot more athletic type of play calls with Sam than you wouldn't do with Joe Flacco, like the RPO stuff, right? You can have him there. Sam is a very capable runner. I mean, I think he displayed that with his 70-yard run. I think the longest run by anybody, any running back, or on the Jets roster. So I think you can use his athleticism, and you have a different plan for Sam than you do Joe Flacco, because Joe can't really avoid the blitz. Sam, if you blitz him and he makes you miss, then you put your defense at a disadvantage because now you have a lot of guys back there covering for a long time.
Greg, what's your take on this?
I don't have much of a different take other than the fact that you're gonna practice for the plays that the Jets run and how they run them, whether they screen on 3rd and 6 inside the 40, or they're going to run draw plays inside the 30. What are they going to do coming out? How are they going to do it on short yardage, goal line? What is their red zone offense about? Then you go and say, okay, who's the quarterback in there? All right, so on this play, they're going to run. They'll practice a play where if Darnold's playing, he might do this, and if Flacco's playing, he might do that. But you cannot sit around there and create two different game plans based on two different quarterbacks. I think everybody in the NFL that plays defense, that looks at film and knows their defensive game plan, where every one of your players is supposed to be and at what time, is not that worried. They just know, and they can improvise and adjust based on the application of which quarterback is going to play. And if they can't, that's a problem.
All right, I'm curious, both your answers to this as well. We're going to go in the same order, Bart then Greg. After watching the Jets and Bills in week one, I know week one, especially during this season, is probably a little different than most. What's the one thing, Bart, that you think the Jets need to do in order to put themselves in a better chance to win Sunday?
Well, simply get off to a fast start. They can't play from behind. I think it was a point in that game where it looked like they may be able to make a push, but, it just too little too late. They didn't take advantage of the turnovers that they got. You have to turn those into points, and you have to make the plays. Marcus had 2 sacks in that game, but he should have had 4. So you have to understand that when the plays present themselves, you have to make them. The Bills have aspirations of winning this division. One of the first teams in the division, I think, to win the division, that's not named the New England Patriots, I believe, since like 2008 or something like that, right? So, I think that, you really have to make sure that you're focused and make sure that you win the hidden yardage. The Jets have not been doing a great job and making sure that they start in great field position, whether that's kickoff or punt team. They can't get pinned down. They have to be able to start flipping the field and making your offense go 40 or 60 yards opposed to 80 plus, every time. And if you do that, you'll be able to win and force them to run out of patience first. Just stay grounded in what your beliefs are, what the fundamentals are, what the game plan is, and everybody stay within themselves. Nobody play hero ball.
All right, Greg, take us home. What do you think the Jets need to do better to win this Sunday, or put themselves in a better chance to win this Sunday than in week one against the Bills?
To me, it's what does the offense do on first down? What do the receivers do when the ball's thrown to them? And what kind of penalties are you going to incur if you're not disciplined? Those 3 things, to me, will make the difference. It's about points scored, not points defended.
There you have it. Another installment of the Sharp Focus presented by Sharp with Bart Scott and Greg Buttle. Guys, thanks a lot for joining me. And Jets Bills this weekend at MetLife Stadium.